All right. 222. Yep, everybody should be able to get it and be able to hear. Hold on 1 second. Send this out real quick. I am on the tube. So I'm gonna interact with people there as well too. 1 second. Yep, so everybody should be able to what's up? There we go. Yep, no problem, Joe. No problem, my brother. All right, jump right into this thing. So let's go ahead and talk about it. 1, 2, everybody should be able to hear. All right, if you can hear, drop a comment in the chat for me real quick. Post this real quick. Eight 8:30 p.m. Yeah, everybody should be able to hear. We should be good in that regard, right? 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. Everybody should be able to hear. Yeah, we're good. All right. So if you are on YouTube, let me make sure everybody on YouTube can hear. Gotta do all these sound checks real quick. Hold on. Yep. All right, cool. I see everybody on yeah, let's get those reps in. I just seen someone say that. So let's talk about it. So I actually posted something here this morning. I want to actually go through it. And I've been speaking about it, but I just want to kind of run down because I know I'm maybe ruffling some people's feathers, but ultimately I really don't care. Um, you are supposed to say what's you know, the reality. So let me post that up again and drop that in here. So for those that may have not seen it yet, it's actually gonna come out. So let me actually make sure that we are refreshed and everybody should be able to see and pretty much hear clearly. But we do have pretty much what I'm highlighting is that the semiconductor industry is going to fall down. We are going to see the semiconductors come to the downside. I definitely want to stress that the semiconductor industry, in my opinion, is going to pull back, but it creates a great opportunity for you to be able to long-term invest, right? So once again, I do want to stress that here. The semiconductor industry has been very, very, very hot over the past couple of months. I mean, the past 6, 7 months have been unprecedented territory for a majority of these semiconductor names. But if I told you had an opportunity to get Nvidia back at 120, 120, 140 again, you would take it. And I don't think that's really a stretch, but when the stock market goes to an all-time high, everyone starts to think that they're an expert, right? So we start to see people highlighting names and just making it a foregone conclusion that we're going to easily go to the upside on a lot of these stocks. And that's not really the case to me, right? I'm more not long-term bears, but just in the short term. Some of the short-term moves that we've seen, I mean, even a name like MU, right, is actually been able to make it all the way here to 250. So I have someone that says NVIDIA is not going to go below 150. If that's what you think, that's what you think. You know what I'm saying? You can think that, right? But all these debates, like I said, when we get into these debates and things online, that's cool. Everyone's an expert. So why don't I ask you, African Prince, how about you open up a Zoom? Or how about you come on here on live with me right now? Let's go back and forth. Everybody has a opinion, right? Over what's gonna happen or what's not gonna happen, etc. But when something does happen, you end up crying or you end up being sad about it, right? When the market does pull back, right, then everybody's nervous and worried, right? So I definitely want to just stress this, right? It's one thing to have an opinion, But it's another thing when you don't even have your face on your Instagram account. I really don't respect you, right? Because you could just say anything, right? And that's what we have is day and age of social media where dudes that have not even had their face on their social media, but they have the most opinions in the world. They sit behind, these cameras and you keyboard type all day. So why don't you tell me why you don't think Nvidia can come back below 150? But also the better question is why wouldn't you want Nvidia, which is one of the best companies in the world, if not the best, to actually go on a discount shelf, right? So I think that's super, super, super duper important for me to cover. Why wouldn't you want a stock like Nvidia, which right now currently is sitting here at 185 bucks? Why wouldn't you want the stock price to actually pull back down? We've seen pullbacks on Nvidia before, so I don't think it's far-fetched that Nvidia could break underneath 150, especially if there is some profit taken. One of the things I pay attention to right now is that with NVDA, we most recently did draw down to about $170. We weren't able to actually get underneath that and actually break. So NVIDIA's actually stayed upright since then. Now, we do have names as well when we take a look at AVGO, right? That has made it to $400 a share. Now, my thoughts on AVGO is that this is going to go to 1,000 again. Not saying that happens next year or the year after, but I'm just saying like I do anticipate AVGO will go to 1,000 again during where I would say within the next 3 years. That's my thoughts, right? I would say within the next 3 years, very easily that we can actually go ahead and see AVGO go back to 1,000. So Nvidia, last year the semiconductor industry was riding sky high as well too, and then we saw a massive pullback that ended up putting you in a position to be able to buy long term. So to me, I would say that when it comes to the semiconductor space, it sets you up with a really great opportunity to buy if a lot of these names are to pull back. ASML, which is now back up here to $1,100 a share. $1,100 a share is a good. I mean, this is the original all-time high price all the way back from July 2024. Ideally, I mean, if ASML was to pull back to $800 a share, I think it would be an easy buy. You do have the ASMG ETF. I remember when ASML was dumping to the downside, and I remember there was a lot of people that really were nervous on ASML. And you see what happened, right? The stock price has pretty much doubled relatively in the past 7 months, right? So when stock prices end up doubling like that, and I've seen this a few different rodeos, right? Everyone becomes an expert when the market is at an all-time high. But when the market starts to drop and then people got all these different questions as far as what's next, I do think it is super, 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 super duper important to stress like everyone is an expert when the market's at a high, right? Everyone's an expert, right? When the market pulls back, that's where everyone gets nervous, right? Now, I don't think I could recommend people to buy AMD at the peak point here. AMD is a $200 company with a massive gap back down. Now, I want to say this underneath 203. If AMD is to break underneath 203, whenever that happens, all right, we've seen it a couple weeks ago where it dropped all the way down to about like 194 and change. On ticker AMD, ideally, to me, it would be unwise of me to recommend people to buy AMD at these levels right now, considering all the market valuation that we've actually seen being added right to AMD. So I would stress to people to wait on a pullback on AMD. Long-term price entries, ideally for AMD. You'll also you've seen me highlight this on AM Dizzle for a minute now. But AMD 110 to 130 ideally would be where I would project that's where the true value really is for AMD. So unless you're being able to pay a price like that for AMD, I would just refrain from purchasing it at this point in time. All right. So AMD long term, we're very bullish on it. But one thing that I do want to show is like even for a company like AMD, it's trading very, very forward. So in 2026, what I keep trying to remind people is you just because you make this big move doesn't mean that it's going to be justified, right? So you got to justify it by having actually solid earnings. So 2026, FY 2026 is going to be very, very huge and important for a name like AMD, MU, all of the names that we've discussed time and time again, it is going to be very, very, very huge for these names. So AMD has a 35 forward PE. So that means the earnings, that's why people have been buying it as much as they have, is because the earnings expectations are pretty high. So if they can justify, they can come out and actually put up the numbers that are expected next year, EPS wise, that can justify this price. If not, I think you're going to see a massive pullback on AMD that really sets you up once again for a great buying opportunity. So these semiconductor names can give you 20%, 20 to 35% off their highs, 20 to 35% off their highs. So if you do the math, right? For example, AMD is currently here at 220. It's actually technically, if we're being honest, already off its high. But we'll just take the 220 price and would times that by 20%. So 220, and you want to minus that by $44. That's about $176. I don't think 20% shaving on a lot of these semiconductor names is really that bad. In the moment, it may seem that way, but let February and March roll around here. Let February and March roll around here, and we start to see the markets pull back and we get a little bit of a profit take. Let that end up happening. And I think you'll see some of these opportunities end up opening up. All right. So you do have Federal Reserve interest rate decision today. One thing that I did notice a little bit this morning was the VIX. One second. So right there on the VIX right now, which is at about 17. So I did see the VIX creeping up a little bit. Set your alerts today for 20. If you don't already have that set, you should, but you may not. If you don't already have the VIX, set your alerts for 20. So go ahead and have those alerts set for 20 on the VIX, right? So if the VIX, we start to see the VIX get over 20, that'll be where we start to see any selling that ends up happening, that'll come there. As for your S&P 500, right, the names, a couple of the things to actually pay attention to today here on the SPY is underneath 680 and 677. For the QQQ, pull that up, is 618. So watch on the QQQ, $618. So 618. And then after that, you're going to be looking at 613. So 618, 613. Time for Q&A, questions. Questions. So yep, 618 and then as well 680. On the upside levels, I mean, I think if we end up seeing a rate cut, I think you'll see probably a shoot up. How do I feel about the Netflix put? Same way I felt before, really, realistically. If you look at Netflix, I was one of the first people to talk about Netflix to the downside. Everyone jumped on the bandwagon afterwards. I have been talking about Netflix coming down since really 12, really actually going back here. If we go back to the weekly time frame, we had a weekly bear flag here. So $1,200, $1,300 a share. The stock is down, $300, which is equivalent to 30 now. So, definitely wanted to really just say, if you're looking at Netflix, I think it's going to come down to $92.75, $90.80. And then after that, it'll be in the 80 range. So it's going to erase all these gains going back to April. So, yep, took my advice and it's paying out. Remember, there was guys that were saying it wasn't going to happen. So there you go. Questions. Let me check over here. Joe, you had a question. Let's see. Did you have a question, Joe? Yep. Thoughts. Questions in. All right, keep things going. We got Oracle after hours today. So Oracle right now is at 223. So the levels, hold on one second, let me add these back. So the level to pay attention to on Oracle, right, is right here at 225. So Oracle's been on the ascension run here to the upside, right? So when you are looking at Oracle, right, you should go ahead and see that if we do get over this 225 today, 233 is after that. So on Oracle, 233 is after that. After that, 241 and change. On the downside, underneath there, it would be back underneath 216, would take you back down to 207. So last time when Oracle reported, they had a massive pop after hours. They went up like 70 to 80 bucks after hours. So we ended up seeing obviously a major move on Oracle after hours. So the stock price ended up shooting up pretty pretty much a lot. And it brought up the entire market as well too after that. So that was really the run. That September run honestly was sparked a little bit as well by Oracle, funny enough. So Oracle actually lifted the entire market up. As far as Oracle today, my expectations, the focus will be on the full year guidance, right? So the full year guidance for Oracle will be the main focus and focal point. So that's my thoughts on Oracle if we can break out. So yeah. Um, so yeah, we never so yeah, as far as Oracle, that original put ended up hitting our target right there at 189 bucks. So yeah, it ended up hitting the target at 189. So I would say, as far as for Oracle right now, I would not swing it. I would not trade earnings. That's just my opinion on it. So yeah, Oracle already hit the target. So that's why I think it's important when people are taking positions that you gotta not just take a position, you gotta also jot down what the targets was. Oracle broke that bear flag, immediately hit. Where was that at? Immediately end up broke those targets, came right here to the downside on Oracle, and we immediately hit those targets and boom, pop right back up. So those are my thoughts really with Oracle. Going into earnings, my thoughts is when it comes to earnings, you're taking a huge gamble. As far as directional move, as far as what Oracle will do, it's really just going to come down to guidance because to be honest with you, last time Oracle missed earnings, but the guidance was good. So that's why Oracle shot up. So they actually missed their EPS and missed their numbers. All right. So definitely. I mean, when people ask about the Santa rally, if you're looking at the market right now, I mean, the SPY and the QQQ have already rallied off of their lows. So like to me, the question of a Santa rally is like, hey, we've already had a rally from the 21st up until now. The SPY is up $30, 33 bucks. So I think the rally is already really taking place. That's just my opinion, though. And we also haven't had Apple contributed a little bit, but it was mainly Google that really, as they started to add their market cap, that was what really shot things higher. Now, going back to NVIDIA, and we're going to cover Microsoft as well, too. Like, if you look at NVIDIA, it hasn't really done anything. That's why when people are talking about like NVIDIA hasn't really done anything all, the past 3-4 months. NVIDIA has really been within the same spot. Now, if you look at Microsoft, like I said yesterday, for those that were on live, if you look directly at Microsoft, it's not getting back above this 500 level right now. So to me, there's more momentum to the downside that's probably going to come, but we're still trading sideways within this same range. So if you notice the trading two things I'm going to cover. First thing is the trading volume has been really slow, right? So you haven't really seen much of a move because the trading volume has been low, right? We've been sitting sideways on the indices for like the past 2 weeks. Yes, certain stocks may have broken out, or some may have came to the downside, vice versa, right? But you haven't really seen any major move from the overall indices because we're sitting right here at the top. And then you also don't have NVIDIA, which is not doing anything. You have NVIDIA sitting right here, the same spot, pretty much. I mean, we're in the same spot that we were at the beginning of November. We're here, right here in the beginning of December, almost to the middle of December now. So Christmas is about 2 weeks away. And we're right here in the same zone, same spot. So MSFT, if we break below 467, I expect more downside on Microsoft, and then 174 and then 170. So I think it's today obviously would be very important. What I told people was I reminded them and said, hey, last year at this point, it was December 18th. And I remember, we had the Federal Reserve interest rate decision. And then after we ended up selling off, right? So we sold off very, very, very quickly after the Federal Reserve interest rate decision. So we'll see. I think we're already at, it's kind of hard to say we're going to get a Christmas rally when the market is already at an all-time high, right? So we'll see what these next 2 weeks really hold for us. As far as same thing here with the QQQ, like we've already had the rally. 580 to 625, that's a rally, right? So we took us literally on the cusp of making a correction on the NASDAQ all the way back here, testing, getting close to an all-time high. So that's really my thoughts on this today. We got a ticker on a breakout, one of our tickers of the week, GEV. It's about to actually break. Well, technically, it actually broke the bull flag here in the pre-market. We were talking about it last night, but it's funny enough, we have this large bull flag pattern. This is the same pattern that broke out AVGO to $1,000. So if I was to pull up Broadcom, hold on one second, I can go and find it. And this is what you got to do. You got to be in tune with your charts. You see how I can just pull up a chart at whim and know exactly where to go find things at. So hold on one second. Right here, like I said, bull flag. The same pattern that broke Broadcom to 1,000 is the same pattern right here. You see? Just off the top of the dome. Can't make it up. Bull flag pattern, broke the top of the bull flag. That's what took us originally. It's $100, but we all know that's 1,000 because of the split, right? So all good. So now when you are able to see this break over 688, break over 674, we're at 688. This is going to be the move that takes GEV to 1,000. Yep. Questions. Questions. 71 people on live. So we was talking about overall market expectations for 2026, semiconductor wise, at least. We got GEV, which is breaking out of this weekly and monthly bull flag pattern right now. So this is about to be, it's about to go on a roll. Last time it broke out of this pattern, it went up. It doubled. The stock price actually doubled last time because it had a bull flag here as well, too. So GEV is on the way to 1,000, ladies and gentlemen. So make sure y'all put that down for yourselves. Another major move for them last night and yesterday. So the stock is up $63. They are a low floater, so do keep that in mind. They are a low floater. Stocks to pay attention to and we watching today. Let's talk Meta and Snowflake. Hold on, let's put these bad boys side by side. We thank AVGO for their service today. Oh man. So we got Snowflake, which is about to get underneath this. It's about to actually get underneath this level underneath here. So 220 is about to probably break today. And then you got Meta, which is looking like it can go back to about 638. So we're right here on the cusp of breaking down. If we get below this pre-market low, I want you to watch Meta today. Underneath the pre-market low, which is right there around 650. Get ready for Meta to move more to the downside. So 638 is where we're looking at Meta to actually go to. So do pay attention there. Meta 638 is where we're looking at. So definitely want any questions on that. Snowflake, I spoke on them yesterday. So Snow, we're expecting them to go to 211. And once again, if you want Snowflake long term, a really good price to get them at would be arguably right there around $170, $170. So I look at this as like a good thing. I'm the person that, say when you see market pullbacks happen, like if you never get a discount, the question that I have for people is, when are you ever going to buy? If things only ever continue to go up, when are you going to get a discount or an opportunity to go ahead and actually just buy? Right. So I wouldn't be afraid of any pullbacks. I would actually invite a pullback, especially if I was someone newer too, that doesn't really have much invested. that's looking to pay a quality price and get a discounted price. Like you don't want to pay premiums in the market. And I get that there's a lot of tickers that are everyone's discussing this is the next this is the next that. And I've been through this a few cycles now, right? Where I've seen the ebbs and the flows. Once again, when the markets are at an all-time high, everyone seems like an expert, right? Everyone's saying, oh man, this person said this ticker was going to do this. And it's like everyone gets super ticker crazy. I want to tell you something though. The only tickers that matter to this market are the ones that sit high asset allocation. The rest can get dumped. Your quantum stocks, right? Your stocks that you're looking at right now that are worth 2 billion or 5 billion, they can absolutely get crushed. And the rest of the market can be completely fine. Because as long as meta platforms, Amazon, Google, Apple, when you're taking a look at Nvidia, these names, AVGO, right? Google, as long as these names stay upward, the rest of the market will be fine. So those are my thoughts. When I just want to really address that uh, because I think a lot of times, like I said, people, I'm hearing people saying, L's crazy for saying that the semiconductor industry could go down. But I also said it last year. And then what happened? It went down. And then if you were a buyer of it, I mean, shoot, you can't make it up. The proof is in the pudding. So that's what I'll say, man. I'm just gonna stress it. Don't fall victim to thinking that the market is gonna just always just stay up, especially for really your high risk investments. Your high risk investments can get sold off so easy. The market doesn't care about them. The market cares about the top names. The rest of the names they run when people are irrational. Right. So those are my thoughts there. Let me pull up MSFT, which is down $7 this morning. Let me just show you real quick. Get a little tighter zoom. So on MSFT, if we are able to see, watch this diagonal trend line break. If we break underneath 483, so when you do see underneath 483, I definitely want to be able to see underneath 480, right? So if you can see underneath 480, definitely that's what you want to watch. Underneath 480, that break. So we're about to sit here on this diagonal trend line. As you guys know, Snowflake and Microsoft go hand in hand. So that's why I have these two names up. So if you see the pullback on Microsoft, it's like it as well. Of course, Snowflake will come down. So that's why I mentioned it about 2 days ago. And I mentioned it again yesterday. So you are taking a look here. If we can see this move to the downside on Snow. Snow is down about 74 cents. Snow is a low floater, so keep that in mind. Low floaters tend to skip at open. So you can see some volatile price movement in action there on these names. Next ticker is Google. And I'll probably say for the most part, majority of tickers probably be flat until the interest rate decision. But if Google gets underneath this low of the day, this LOD from the previous day, which is 311, watch Google below 311 because it's going to drop to 306. So if you see a pullback on Google, it'll be underneath that 306, right? All right. Questions. Why you guys got me? Before the market opens. Questions. This is your time to get some questions in. So ask the questions that you need answered. So 311 should be the area that you are watching for. 311. 311. Covered JPM last night. MSFT covered them. JPM, yeah, they had a wet the bed moment yesterday, but it's okay. Just print money and be right back around. Oracle, we know they report after hours. You guys have the levels there. Netflix is only down 5 cents. So, like I really said, for the most part, the market should be flat up until the interest rate decision. I don't expect any major movement at all until that rate decision comes out at 2. So scenarios, again, to kind of run through just so everybody knows. Scenarios wise, the only thing that I see really actually us happening, right? So let's say, for example, Go back to it real quick. There we go. So Federal Reserve, if we don't get, let's start with we don't get a rate cut. I think the market will probably stay flat or not really move until the press conference is really finished. And then once the press conference actually goes ahead and finishes, that will likely get bought up. If we do see a pullback, like if you see a dump overnight tonight, I think that pullback will get bought up very quickly on Thursday morning after the opening bell. So any drop that comes from this, I think, will be a solid reversal for those that can catch it, right? If you're for my traders, right? Then as well, if you are looking at the Fed, if we do get a rate cut today, which at this point I think is more likely. I know there was some back and forth of no rate cut, all of that stuff. I think if we do get a rate cut, you'll likely see a strong push to the upside immediately, and the risky assets will likely catch a bid. For example, the ARC ETF, Palantir, Tesla, some of your quantum names, some of your lending names as well, right? They'll probably get a nice little move sharply to the upside. Will it hold? Probably not. It probably get sold off a little bit, but the risky assets will catch a bid. So that's really my notes as far as today. I don't see massive fireworks, just happening just off whim. Well, ultimately, it's up to JP. You can never, to me, you never can really account for what he can say, right? There might be one line that he says today that people hold on to and they don't really like, or there might be one line that he says today that people end up liking a lot. And then so it's tough sometimes to really gauge exactly, what's going to be said. So I would just say guidance is going to be key. So whatever he says at the podium guidance wise for the next year, although JP's time is up, so we do have to consider that. One stock that I forgot to cover this morning, but it's just ticker BA. I'll still be looking for Boeing to go back below this 197, come down here to 194. Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah, so as far as one of the things, hold on one second. I seen a question, which is a good question. Three questions over here on YouTube. Sorry about that. Right. So I'll get this first question. More interested because for one, I don't really trust, if you think about it, right? So I don't really trust the market at all. Even though we did see the indices go upward, all that happened. I don't want to speak inaccurately. So let me highlight how many days it took for that to actually happen. That happened relatively very quick. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So about 7 days is what it took for us to actually get back up here. Now, for the past 7 days after that, actually 8 days after that, we've been trading sideways. So the indices have not really shown me the ability to actually go ahead and close above this 690. Maybe today it happens. We'll see, right? 690 to me would invalidate any short setups that are out there. But with Snowflake, once again, when you are looking, I'm looking at Snowflake and saying, hey, I'm expecting this price to actually move downward and pull back down. Now, I would watch as well the SPY here at this 677. So I want you guys to put those levels down. I want you guys to watch 677, right? Look underneath 677, right? Very, 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 very important for you to look underneath this 677. So when I look at the S&P 500, those are the levels that I would want to watch and pay attention to. Now, as far as when we are looking for, price to actually come downward, you have certain names that are still showing you sell setups. Now, we covered Snowflake, which Snowflake doesn't sit high in the NASDAQ, but we also have Netflix, right? So Netflix is within this bear flag. So trust me, when it breaks underneath this 94, it's going to come down further. Now you also have Meta, which sits high there. Meta actually just broke underneath during the pre-market session. Just now, let me show you here in the past 5 minutes, we just had a wick off at 645. Right. Shout out to Remar. He just sent me a text while we was on here, and I appreciate him for that. Right. So we just got underneath the level I was just telling you guys about. So Meta is about to probably go down there and test that 638, in my opinion, today. Maybe probably won't happen before the Fed Reserve interest rate decision, but If the Fed Reserve interest rate decision is not to the liking, I anticipate Meta to pull back more. So remember last week when we popped and everyone was like, okay, is this going to be the rally that takes Meta upwards? I was like, nah, I think it's best to just take your profits, get out of there. Let's look for a reentry. I still think Meta is going to pull back downward. If the Fed cuts rates, but next year's guidance is weak, will the risky names still have a pop? That's what Fozzie asked. The answer to that question is no. So if the guidance is weak on next year's rate cuts, then you're likely to see the market pull back today. Those are my thoughts on it. I got a question right here from Von Keith. You guys know me and Von Keith chop it up all the time in the chair. He asked me a question: do I think that the Fed will be dovish or hawkish today? I'll probably say I'm 60% on the side that they'll be hawkish, 40% on the side that they'll be dovish. Right. So another question that I got: what if we get a 50 basis point rate cut? Slight chance that that could happen. I want to correct this person and say there's no chance that's happening today. Absolutely, I'm 100% certain there will be no 50 basis points. So we were barely going to get a 25 basis point. So there's not going to be any. There's 100. You can put me on the docket for this. I will tell you, there's 100% chance that it's not happening. It will not happen. 100% chance that is not going to happen. So there will not be a 50 basis point rate cut, right? So, questions. My thoughts on NVIDIA, I just see Meta pop back up, so that's good for them. At least they was able to hold. They had a little, maybe they had some news come out. I have to take a look. As far as for NVIDIA, that still the levels remain the same. The more you look at NVIDIA, you'll start to see, right? Like the more that we're staying below, notice how this 185 has been very pivotal. We're above it this morning. Let's see if we can close. But I would like to see NVIDIA pull back now below. If we lose 170, guys, like all the people that's talking a mess and saying I'm wrong or whatever, that's fine. You could keep buying at the top. If NVIDIA happens to break this 170, do not be surprised to see how fast it'll go back to 150 and change there soon. So I know a lot of times, once again, when the market gets to these highs, everyone starts to think they're an expert and starts to think things are easy. I'm just telling you here now, valuations do matter. The problem is that people think that they don't because people ignore them for so long. Then when they come into focus and you get an article that says people start to sell these high risk names, growth stock names because of their valuations. Hey, these are the same companies that got to step to the podium and they got to deliver the numbers for us. So pay attention to price action during the day. It's telling you the story, just like it did with Netflix, right? Netflix is not, in my opinion, not ready to go up yet. Netflix have come down to that good price range of $80, give you that $80. If I told you at 1,300, you would be able to get it at 800, which is equivalent to $80, you would take it. Now that it's getting ready to happen, when it gets underneath this $94 level, which is going to happen here soon, and then when Netflix gets down here to $80, they'll still tell you that I was wrong about it. But I told you at 1,300, 1,200, I reminded you on this bear flag break. And then we had another bear flag, which we broke underneath here at 109. And we're down. This is before the whole deal with Warner Bros. And all of that. Just straight price action and charts. And also what I looked at valuation wise. So Netflix is coming to a good range. That $80 level, I think, is easy money. 55 and 65, I think that's just a stretch. Could it happen? It could, but I think there's a low probability of it getting down there. But in the event that it does, I mean, more room for you to gobble up and take advantage of this thing. Remember one thing: you want to pay discounted prices, don't pay premiums. Do not pay premium prices for tickers, especially for tickers that have no earnings. Just think about that. You would be willing, ask yourself a question: why would you be willing to overpay for a product, right, that doesn't really have any value, nothing really to show you? You might be willing to do that for something like an NVIDIA or something like a Netflix, where you have a proven track record of these companies. But don't get caught overpaying for garbage. right? Do not get caught overpaying for garbage. So that's my thoughts in that regard. MicroStrategy, MSTR. I try to cover as much as the tickers always. So like anybody that's can come back and say, oh, well, he didn't say this. I'm telling you here now, do not touch Coinbase, in my opinion, until it gets below 200. MicroStrategy allow this thing to come back down to 120 to $100. 100 to 120 would be ideally the price that you want to go ahead and get Palantir, right? Not Palantir, MicroStrategy, right? Funny enough, Palantir, you would actually want to get that around 80 bucks. That's like your best price. I don't think 80 will happen. I just want to keep that in mind, but that's your best price. As far as Palantir, roughly around 120 to 140 would be a really good idea price range. You got 148 the other week, and that's why I got bought up so fast, right? So Coinbase, less than $200 a share. Like you don't want to pay premiums for already leveraged businesses too. Like Coinbase is a leveraged business. MicroStrategy is definitely a leveraged business. So you don't want to get caught paying premium prices for names that are already leveraged businesses in itself, right? Like MicroStrategy is mortgage its future on BTC, which is fine when Bitcoin is running and eating. It hurts when Bitcoin may have a pullback or it may stall out and trade sideways. And it may hit some of the liquidation prices that MicroStrategy may have to make some moves around. So 74K is going to be very, 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 very pivotal, right? 74,000 is going to be very pivotal here right now. So that's my thoughts on, crypto space names. Protect your cash and your capital. Focus on paying the right price. Don't focus on paying overvalued price. And I think a lot of times people pay an overvalued price. Those are my thoughts. Don't get caught paying a premium. Even for the best, what I consider to be one of the best assets in the world, and that's BTC, Bitcoin. Currently at 92K. Ideally here on BTC, next year I still see us going about 60 to 70K. I still see us going there, even if it's for a short period of time, right? I think that when we get down there to 74, 66,000, like it's not going to be long. It's going to be like clockwork, right? Price is going to be right out of there because there's going to be money right there ready to buy. So those levels to me will not hold long, but I expect what I call it right now, a crypto scare. You have your different reasons to sell. I actually have a sheet that shows you all the reasons to sell up until I want to say it was like 2023. There's always going to be something that comes in and spooks the market and gives you a reason to go ahead and sell. So like I said, you definitely want to be, you want to definitely be very, 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 very careful and protect yourself and protect your capital, right? So I think that's super, super, super duper important. Focus on paying the right prices. Don't focus on paying a premium price, right? Questions, questions, questions. Get your questions in. Questions, questions, questions. It's 9:11. You got 20, you got 18 minutes until the market opens. 9:11, 9:12, excuse me, 18 minutes now. 18 minutes till the market opens up today. Choo, choo, choo. Meta is at 651. They have a pre-market low. Looks like they got down there to 646. Microsoft is down here to 483. Uh-oh. 1 second. Watch Microsoft break towards 480 today. If that happens, keep your eyes on Snowflake, ticker SNOW, underneath 220 today. Watch Snowflake, guys. Really close. Underneath that 220, they're going to start breaking towards that 211. So I want you to watch ticker Snowflake, SNOW, Snow. Let's see here. Any questions? Questions, questions, questions. Now's your time to get some questions in. Questions, questions, questions. CrowdStrike is currently at 516. This is, I have some questions. Actually, I did get a question on the back end about Crowd, so let me cover it here now. CrowdStrike lo and behold, one of your next $1,000 tickers, right? So I got a question on CrowdStrike yesterday, and they asked, which was a good one, right? My personal opinion, like names like Crowd and names that people really want, they don't tend to really fall much more than 20 to 25% usually, right? So like on CrowdStrike, a lot of people ask me, what's the strategy of being able to buy Crowd? I would say anytime you get a 20 to 25% pullback, go ahead and purchase some Crowd, right? Because you can see that play out pretty much here. Now you did get, of course, a deep sell-off from 293 back to $100 in 2023. But then since then, like any pullback that you've had in the cybersecurity space, you've had about four, right? July, you had here in February this year, and you just had July of this year where cybersecurity sold off a little bit. And then, of course, what just happened here in November, right? So, like, anytime you get those pullbacks, that's a good place to be a buyer of. But if you notice, like, each pullback has only lifted CrowdStrike up higher. So, even though there was a pullback, after each of those pullbacks, the stock came up and went up higher, right? So, CrowdStrike, those are my thoughts on CRWD, right? And any name that is highly wanted in a growing business, is able to have growing revenues, growing EPSs, continued profitability. These names, when they do pull back, even like a name like Robinhood, right? Like I think Hood went down to a low of like 105, 106, something like somewhere around there, 101 actually. Right. But if you notice, Robinhood is already back up here to 135. So that pullback from 155 to 100, I mean, that's a 33% drop, right? So the sweet spot to me has always been when names of quality that can actually show you and produce to you the numbers, when they do fall, then like not every name will fall 60, 70, 80%. And to be honest with you, those names that fall 60, 70, 80% are usually your garbage names, usually your high risk, your garbage names that haven't really proven themselves. Those are usually the names that are actually sitting there, right? So once again, when you are taking a look here, right, at these names, you got Snowflake, um, even Snowflake, if it goes down there to that 170, I think that's an ideal price target that you want to go ahead and actually look to pick up the position at. So Snowflake, once again, super, super, super duper important to actually pick up this name. 170, 180, that's your levels and numbers. So as the stock is coming down, I would suggest for you to short it, right? So I gave you the levels to pay attention to with Snow as the stock comes down to go ahead and short it. I wanted to go back to MSFT real quick because I did not give a level that I should have. It's currently at 4 right here on MSFT. I want you to watch it underneath that 468, 467 level right there at 459. So that's where I want you to watch MSFT at, right? Right underneath those levels. I want you to pay attention to it there, getting down to those areas and levels there at that spot. All right. So I wanted you to take that. All right. When you see that, so you got 482. If we can see a flush, you're going to see that same flush happening here as well. I don't think it'd be far-fetched to see Snowflake get down to 211. After that 205, Snowflake will be dragging down. So mark these things down. I know you've seen since the rally, a lot of these little rallies that have taken place since. Not every stock has rallied, but even like, for example, Microsoft, pay attention that Microsoft is nowhere near an all-time high, yet the S&P 500 and NASDAQ are knocking. So Microsoft's really been lagging behind, no break above 493. So if we pull back again, you're likely to see Microsoft break those lows from November, right? Likely to see Microsoft break those lows from November. Questions, 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 questions. Speak now, forever hold your peace. Last call for questions. 3 years. Last call for questions. Questions, questions, questions in the chat. Last call. Mm, 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 mm. All right. So we don't got no more questions. I'll go ahead and wrap this thing up. Appreciate everybody tapping in here on YouTube and IG. We'll touch bases later. We'll see what happens. Peace.